For those that may not know me yet, my name is Jen Miner. I am the owner of Thrive Health and Wellness. And I try to come into this group a bunch of times a week, as often as possible, to share with you just helpful information, to support you on your health and your healing journey. And because that's my ultimate goal is for everyone I know, everyone I can possibly reach, everyone I can possibly touch, to be able to support them along this way and to help them along. Because if someone hadn't been able to do that for me, then I wouldn't be here right now. So I'm very grateful for that support. I value that support. I realize how important that support is. And I want to be that support for as many people as possible. So feel free to invite others to this group if there are other people that are seeking to consistently grow and to increase their level of health. I'd love to have them. The more the merrier. I'm one of 9 kids in my family. There's always, comings and goings and ins and outs and all kinds of stuff always happening. And so the more the merrier. I truly mean that. Be after moving and not having as many around me nowadays, I truly recognize the impact of that even more and appreciate that even more than I did in the past. So today we're talking about, we're going to be looking at or digging a little deeper into whether or not never getting sick is a sign of health. I know that it's not pleasant being sick. Nobody says, hey, I'd really like to have a cold today, or I'd really like to struggle in this area today. We don't wake up welcoming those things in, but the world that we live in, okay, the level of toxicity that we're exposed to, even if we take all of the precautions we possibly can, live the cleanest life possible, we're not in a bubble. That's just the way that it is. So we're always, always, always being exposed. We are always being challenged in more and more ways, okay? And that's just the nature of life on this earth, unfortunately. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because that has allowed us to survive as a humankind as long as we have, okay? Without that consistent growth by our immune system to be able to recognize and overcome these new challenges, we wouldn't be able to exist, okay? So it's very, very, very necessary. And it's something that we want to make sure that we are able to continually do, or else as a being, we're only going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. Okay, so not that I believe in survival of the fittest per se, in the broadest sense of that term, but it's more so the ability to adapt. Okay, because the toxicity we're exposed to, bacterias that grow to try to overcome all of our pesticides and all of our attempts to kill them off, they're surviving and growing, right? So we're exposed to so much more. And the more we manipulate our food, the more we're exposed to in that arena. Okay. So the more compromised we become. So this is a challenge that we really want our body to be able to have. It's an investment in not just our own personal human life here, but our offspring as well. Okay. And if we dampen and if we try to suppress all of that activity, we're not going to survive. Not well, and not for very long. So the short answer is no, you don't want to never get sick. All right. You want your body to learn how to manage these new levels of toxins that are coming in and these new types of toxins that we're being exposed to, as technology advances, as all of our chemical abilities advance. We have to learn how to adapt and how to manage these things as a working physical being. Okay, so that's really, really important. And that means that we're going to be challenged at times, but we're going to thrive under that challenge. Okay, our body's going to have, the goal is that our body's going to have all of the resources that it needs to move through it swiftly, to move through it easily, this is the key, okay, and not get stuck anywhere. So I'm a visual, so I always like to picture, an example of something. So maybe you'll find this helpful. For me, I like to think of your body as having a bucket inside of it. Okay, so this bucket is your ability to handle the toxic load of the world. And it's not just the chemical, it's not just heavy metals, it's not just pesticides, it's not just toxins with the EMFs and all of that stuff. It's not just those things, it's also stress, it's also trauma, okay? It's also emotions. So all of these things are viewed as traumatizing to the body, and it doesn't really matter where the trauma came from. It's all considered a trauma, okay? So we have a bucket, okay? When we were created, the creator knew that, hey, he knew that there are going to be these experiences. He knew that in order for humankind to survive, they're going to need to be able to manage a certain amount of these things, okay? So he gave us systems, all right, to allow us a way to do that, which are amazing, and they've gotten us so far. Think about it, modern medicine's only a little over 100 years old. Okay, what did we do before then? Okay, we survived very, very well. Obviously, we got here. So, it's a system that works very well when it has what it needs to do it. And when we make the journey as easy as possible. And how do we do that? We do that with lightening the burden as much as possible. We do that with equipping it with the tools as much as possible, making sure that it has everything that it needs to do its job. So that toxic bucket, if we're not doing that, if we're not conscious and aware of our toxic world and eliminating as many of those factors as possible, and then we're not aware of that for generations. Okay, so it starts to build because we detox through our babies, right? So babies are being born, they're finding in the umbilical cords all of these toxicities and toxin levels that are already way overloaded, and the baby's just entering into this world, right? So generation after generation, we're being born weaker and weaker and weaker in that sense. And so that bucket, it gets full, and to overflowing, right? And this is not good. So this is where being able to detox effectively comes in, but you don't want to just do these detoxes because your drainage pathways, all of your exits are usually compromised, all right? So when we do that and our exit pathways are compromised, that creates just a recipe for disaster. It creates more problems than it does good. So there's that's where you want to work with a professional. You want to work with someone like me that can help guide you through that process effectively so that you can actually achieve your goal, okay? So that's our goal, is to, one, if it's overflowing in full, we want to reduce as much as possible. We want to strengthen those drainage pathways and those exits, all right? We want to make sure that the body has all the tools it needs to do that. And that will support that system and help prevent that bucket from getting overloaded and overwhelmed moving forward and in the future. So there's another methodology called German New Medicine. All right, and German New Medicine is great because it looks at how trauma impacts our the health that we experience. Okay, and again, like I said, trauma can come from any source. All right, it can come from a bacterial overload, it can come from toxins and chemicals and all that stuff, and it can come from emotions, it can come from stress. Trauma can come from anywhere. So this was designed by an oncologist. He had access to all of these brain scans, and they saw that brain scans for, again, as in oncology, he's studying cancer. So there were lesions in the brain in the same spots for one type of cancer. They all had the lesions in the same, they had these blurs, I shouldn't say lesions, but these blurs in the same area of the brain. And they all lined up. So they were able to trace this back to specific traumas and what could be causing this. But the thing that led him to this place, before he was just an oncologist, as we should traditionally know it, his son was very traumatically murdered, basically. And he found himself a few months later after that with prostate cancer. So this led him to dig a little deeper. You know, when the situation touches home, when it's more of a personal story, a personal experience, you tend to look at it through a different lens, you know? So this is what led him down this path. So what he started to realize is that there's different phases, okay, of healing. So the moment when you're in the conflict, he calls it, when the trauma is actively happening, everything shuts down, right? We know this. We know the fight or flight experience. We know, you know, if the body perceives it's being attacked in any way, it doesn't matter if it's being attacked because you're stressed out from work and the cortisol is raising for that purpose. It doesn't matter if you're being attacked from an immune perspective. It doesn't matter how the body is being attacked. It just perceives that it's being attacked in some way. So this is, you know, the breakdown phase. We talked about this yesterday, the catabolic phase, where the body is breaking things down, right, to relieve or to free up resources so that it can manage this trauma, right? And then after the conflict active phase, then there's a healing phase that happens. And when you're conflict active, when the trauma is taking place, you're not, like, when you're running from that bear, you're not stopping to think, oh, I had an ache in my back before. You're not feeling that pain, right? You know, those hormones take over and you do what you have to do to get to survive the experience. I have to think of this like when my kids were little. And I was like, you know what? I never got sick at the same time my kids got sick. I always got sick after they got sick. And it's like, oh, they gave it to me, you know? But being a mom and you're the caretaker, when you're in that experience, that was my conflict active phase. You know, that's the time when you're on point, you're taking care of everyone, you're making sure that everyone is safe and okay. And then once all is calm, and all is well, and your body's like, great. So all of the resources that I let go of, everything that I broke down during that survival time, now I have to build it back up. Okay. And that's your healing phase. And that's when the symptoms start expressing. Okay. There's oftentimes, if you follow his cycle of healing, there's oftentimes headaches. You know, there's a phase where night sweats are part of it. So these are all normal healing responses when the body is working through this process. Now, when we try to stop it because it's uncomfortable, because we don't like it, instead of supporting it so it can do its job efficiently, faster, get it done, repair, rebuild, walk out of this stronger, what we often try to do is stop it. And that's the worst thing that we could do, is to try to stop it. We don't want to stop it. We want to support it so that it can do what the body was designed to do and then move through it. So it's not a sign of weakness to get sick. Now, let me also, you know, you all, like I said, you want to be able to manage things with grace and ease. And the more reserves you have, okay, the bigger your health bank account is. Okay, let's say if you had $1 million in your bank account, would you notice if $5 went missing? Probably not. But if you only had $5 in your bank account, you sure as hell would notice if that $5 went missing, right? So think of that as your health bank account. So if you have $1 million in your bank account, you're not gonna notice these little withdrawals here and there. But you are going to notice if you don't have much of a health bank account. And this is where you're going to find yourself responding to everything, okay? And where we're not being able to move through healing phases efficiently. So that's really the goal, is to make sure, one, we expand our health bank account as much as possible, all right? And two, so that we actually move through these healing processes instead of trying to stop them. Okay. So that's very important. So that's like the difference between I got a fever and I took Tylenol to stop the fever, or I gave a calcium lactate, which is one of the things the body's looking for when it brings on a fever, and it eliminated the need for the fever, but still supported my immune system so it could do what it needed to do. See the difference there? One is stopping the process, which is only going to prolong the issue, and then whatever, you know, it was struggling to heal is not going to get healed. This isn't healthy. You know, we don't want that. Or let's get this job done. Let's get it over with. Let's fix it. You know, it's like spilled milk. Let's just wipe it up. Let's get it done. Let's fix it. All right. That's the attitude we want to have when it comes to illnesses and things like that. So good. So I hope that was helpful for everybody. You know, like I talked about yesterday, stress, trauma, it doesn't matter what the source is, the body's going to treat it all the same way. And it's still going to need these same tools. It's still going to need these same resources to respond. So we want to make sure we're supporting it as well as possible. So if you have questions, leave them in the comments for me. I can't see my live screen right now. Let's see. Yes, we have similar goals, Linda. Absolutely. So leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them and get back. If you found this information helpful, type that in the comments too, because when I'm creating content or trying to think of ideas or what would be helpful for people to know or to talk about, it's really important to hear your voice because you guys are the ones out there. So knowing how I can best support you and what you would like to hear more about or areas of struggle, if you're not comfortable posting the comments, you can certainly message me as well. So I will see you all tomorrow.